Good morning, colleagues. This is meeting number 143 of the Standing Committee on Public Accounts for Tuesday, June 10th, 2019. Actually, I think we're at June 11th today, aren't we?
Yes. Yes, sir.
June 11th. We will be televised for the first part of our meeting. Actually, we're going to change up our agenda a little bit here this morning. Because we are working on some negotiated wordsmithing on a letter that we're sending away to different departments and ministers, we will go in camera at the beginning, and we will look at the Report 5, Equipping Officers of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police of the 2019 Spring Report of the Auditor General of Canada. And secondly, if time permits, we will also look at the legacy report, the committee legacy report, which we began last Thursday. Now, I'll just explain a few things. We'll be in camera if the three lead critics from the government, the official opposition, and Mr. Christofferson from the NDP, if those three can work out some kind of a deal, then they may be back fairly soon, I mean within a half an hour or so. And then we will stay in camera, we'll discuss a proposed letter, and then we will go into public after that for committee business if the need has to happen. So with that, we will suspend and go in camera. Morning, committee. We will come back from being in camera where we worked on a draft report. Also very pleased to announce that we do have a consensus on a letter that we will be sending and forwarding to the Minister of Finance, CCing the Treasury Board and others. And want to thank actually the three parties, the government side, the Liberal Party, the Conservative Party, the New Democratic Party, for working together on this. And Mr. Christofferson, your motion, I want to thank you for that. You do have the floor, by the way. But what I would like to say is that we have come to a consensus on a letter. And there has been the request that we have a recorded vote in regards to forwarding this letter to the Minister of Finance and the CCing to the other positions, the Privy Council and the Treasury Board. And so we will move now to the motion that the committee send a letter to the Minister of Finance regarding funding of the Office of the Auditor General of Canada, and we will have a recorded vote.
Okay.
To our clerk.
Mr. Arsenault. Mr. Breton. Mr. Hare. Okay. Ms. Yip. Ms. Mendez. Mr. Kelly.
Yes.
Mr. Davison.
Yes.
Mr. Christofferson.
Wait.
And I obviously am in favor, although I don't need to vote. I don't need to vote to break the tie. It's unanimous, and it's good to announce that the letter that we send is unanimous, coming from the committee. I will now defer to Mr. Christofferson, please.
Thank you, Chair. Again, I want to thank colleagues. Thank you, too, Chair. And these things can't happen without leadership, and you continue to provide excellent leadership right to the finish line. So, and I just want to say, it's based on the trust and the respect. That because a lot of what the Chair has to, having done that job, a lot of it's you're in suspended animation, trying to make things happen, not happen all at the same time, and a lot of it comes down to trust. Do you trust the Chair? And we do. And it has made a big difference having you in the chair. So thank you again, sir, for your role. Where we are, as my understanding, and so far affirmed by our actions, is that in exchange for withdrawing my motion, which I would do at the end of the conclusion of the components of the deal being met, which is having had that vote, but also an affirmation that there will now be, as a result of the package deal, sort of, there's the letter going forward, which we've unanimously supported. There is a public hearing on Thursday. My understanding is the Auditor General has confirmed, and my further understanding is Finance will be there. Is that correct?
We have given them the heads up, and they have, Angela, I'll let you, you're the one.
Yes, they haven't agreed or disagreed. They've just aware and been asked to make their deputy minister available for the day.
But it's understood by everyone that if for some reason Finance doesn't come, the deal's off, and we're back where we were. What do you mean, no? It was part of a package deal.
Yeah, we have no control at this point. We have no control over that.
I'm not blaming anyone.
Yeah.
I'm just saying if they don't come, then I didn't get the deal that I agreed to, and I start talking again.
René, Mr. Arsenault, I'm sorry.
It's all right. J'aime pas l'utilisation du mot.
I don't like the use of the word deal. I think all parties have been transparent. We were talking about all agreeing, the opposition parties and the governing party, on a letter to send to the finance minister. It's good work that all parties have done, including Mr. Christofferson. As for me, what I would say for what we're doing until Thursday, that's what we're doing, just that. I never understood that we had to require someone who perhaps can't come to come, and that if not, the deal falls apart. It was never, in my mind, a question of this letter not going through because somebody couldn't show up here.
The letter has the weight of the complete committee. It's been wordsmithed. I think that letter is good to go. We have done some preliminary work until the letter was finalized. We couldn't do a formal invitation to the Auditor General's office as well as the Finance Department's office. But we have instructed our clerk to give a heads up to them. The Auditor General is available, will be here. The response that we got from Finance was they are aware of it. They will try to be there. So I think we will have Finance. It's not going to be the minister. It may be the deputy minister. It may be the associate deputy, Mr. Christofferson. But I think we can assume that they will be there.
Okay. No, with respect, Mr. Arsenault, I direct you back to the Hansards from last week. It was put forward to me as a package. At the end of the day, we agreed that there would be a letter that hopefully we could all agree on, and that's when we set out to negotiate. And because I threw it on the table, and in fact, I think it was Mr. Kelly who mentioned it first, or Mr. Davison actually, and then I said, and then I sort of made that part of the package. But if you look at the Hansard, it's clear there were two pieces to me relinquishing the filibuster. One, we would agree on a letter. We're there. The other thing was, and this was important to me, was that we would have a public hearing with the Auditor General and the Finance Department so that we can ask some questions that we all have about this and have a baseline of fact rather than just, and I'll say it, rather than just the rhetoric that comes from a filibuster. It's not the content, it's the action in that case. So, to me, if we don't have that piece, we've only got half a deal. Now, I didn't think it was a problem. I'm not raising it as a concern. And everything I've heard privately was that we're good to go. And I'm hearing that again publicly. I'm just saying, though, that it has to happen. And on that, Chair, because, again, I was thinking through, well, what if the deputy's not available? So I would accept an associate deputy. I would even accept a director, to be fair. But what I would not accept is anybody answering a question saying, I'm not the deputy and I can't answer that. They need to make sure that there's people in the room, maybe the chief of staff to the deputy, but as long as there's an assurance that because I've been around a long time. I remember the days before the legislation, and it would be all, not my job, not my job, not my job, in which case we might not as well have had a meeting. We need people who are going to be accountable. That's what the deputy is. But I'm saying if the deputy can't make it, then I would accept an ADM, but I would not accept an answer from that ADM that says, I'm not the deputy and I can't answer that.
I will tell you this, that we have no indication that they will not be there. I know the deputy minister and I know the department. They are very capable, qualified, good, hardworking department. And my hope is that they will honor their word and be here. So
my expectation is exactly the same for the very same reasons.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, if it doesn't happen, it's sending a pretty bad message because it looks like they're afraid. And I don't think that's the case.
No.
So hopefully everything will go as... I just wanted to mention to Mr. Arsenault, deal is not a bad word. I mean, you can use it to say, backroom deal sounds bad. But when my friend Alexandra came in and we were still in camera, I hope I'm okay to say this, is she came in and said, we've got white smoke, meaning we've come to a meeting of the minds, meaning we have a deal, just like they do it in the Sistine Chapel. They have a deal. So the word itself is not necessarily negative. It's depending on what kind of deal you're cutting. So the last piece then, Chair, assuming the letter's done now, we got that piece is good and appreciate that and thank my colleagues for the good faith bargaining. And hopefully we'll go on the optimistic note that Thursday will happen. So the last thing then is just for me to, two things actually, say my final bit. There were a couple of things that I wanted to put on the record, and you've acknowledged I'll have the time to do that, and I will not take long, you have my word. And then the very last thing would be to formally withdraw my motion, in which case then we're moving on, and hopefully this gets picked up, the fight continues in the House where it needs to be. So the main reason, Chair, that I wanted to have a couple of minutes to close off with remarks is it's incredibly frustrating to consistently see the President of the Treasury Board every time, I don't think there's an exception, every time she's been asked a question about this $10.8 million, we get a side discussion about what happened in 2011, 8 years ago. And the essence of the message from the president of the Treasury Board is that, well, to the Conservatives and to the NDP, because they're suggesting that we sort of went along with this and didn't care, well, her answer to why the government is denying the AG the $10.8 million they need to do all of their chapters, including cybersecurity, that the reason that they aren't going to do that is because what they did was so awful that we need to put it in comparison. And to me, at best, that's an argument that says, yeah, what we're doing is awful, but it's not as awful as what they did. Well, it's very frustrating because that's all the minister has to say. The minister has not given one substantive reason why there isn't the $10.8 million that the Auditor General needs to finish off the chapters that they want to do, like cybersecurity. Not one solid answer. Parliament, we deserve better than that, especially since it's our employee, it's our staff person, it's Parliament staff person, not the Executive Council, not part of the broader public service. They work for and are accountable to and are hired and fired by Parliament. And if the Executive Council, the Cabinet, is going to deny that funding, at the very, very least, they should give a reason why. And just saying, well, the other guys did it too, that doesn't cut it. Especially a government that went out of their way to say 4 years ago when they wanted power and got it, oh, we're going to be different. We're going to treat committees different. We're going to respect Parliament. We're going to be the most amazing thing you've ever seen. No more, we've had our last election, first past the post. All these great enunciations. I'm not running again, so I don't need to do much more of that. I got competent colleagues and a successor. I see Kent is applauding that I'm not going there. But it doesn't change the fact that it is really frustrating for a parliamentarian who has no interest in partisan politics right now. I have zero interest in that. It does nothing for me, and I don't need a headline. And I've already mentioned I wanted this to be nice and quiet. This is the opposite of what I was looking for. But it does need to be underscored as someone who has been around here for a while and has some strong feelings about these matters, and I do know a little bit about it. That it is just unacceptable. It's unacceptable what is happening, that the Executive Council, the very group that has to answer for the auditor's reports, are the ones saying you can't have the money. I had a delegation, I won't say what country, a delegation but just maybe before your time, Chair, might even when I was Chair, but sometime 6-8 years ago, we had a delegation come in. And you know what was interesting was they had the legislation, that they had independent, the Auditor General. They had the independent legislation, just what you would hope, like as good as Britain, as good as ours. Good. And the committee was structured.
We have a point of order. Mr. Arsenault.
Dernier venu sur ce comité ici, là, je suis plus jeune.
I'm a new arrival on this committee, and it's the fourth meeting that I've heard repeatedly the same thing from my colleague, with much respect, Mr. Christofferson. But it's repetitive. I think in our regulations, Mr. Chair, you can cut short any repetition that is not helpful, not constructive, on the point Mr. Christofferson wants to make. And if it's so important, I think it is important in the letter, but everything he was saying had to do with the letter we've just agreed on. For someone who has a lot of experience on the committee, if it was that important, and it is, it should have been on the table a long time ago. And this is the end of the session. What I would ask, Mr. Chair, is that you use your powers as chair to cut short repetitive speech. We've all heard this argument before. I respect it. I've heard it, but I don't need to hear it 6, 8, 10 times.
Thank you for your point of order. It's just because we've given you a short period of time, as your wording is, it's maybe we'll try to make sure that we aren't going over and over.
Well,
the same
you know, all I ask,
information.
I'm getting my dander up here. I mean, we had, don't you people understand deals? Don't you know how to negotiate? There was an agreement that I would be given a short period of time. I'm nowhere near using up what would be classified as short. Does it bother you that much that I'm saying something I might have said the other day when I only have one real message? This government said they were going to do things different, and they have been the most draconian against the Auditor General that I've ever seen.
Yeah. So we also want in this committee to try, and I know Mr. Christopherson, it's very difficult. We've had 4 years of being very nonpartisan, and I know this has got us all frustrated. There's water in the wine on the government side. There's frustration from the opposition, and I think there's, I sense that there's a growing frustration on all sides here, which we want to curtail. So I know you have great experience in the chair and there. You know as well as I do the process, and that you do have the floor. I think we've heard a concern brought forward by the government, and it's whether or not we can continue that nonpartisan. And I think you've made your point very well. It's hurting, it's scathing to the government, and I think all of us are feeling that frustration. Especially those who do have to be reelected. And so I would just say, maybe with that in mind, just consider your issues.
Out of respect for you,
Thank you.
and not necessarily the position of my honorable colleague, I will get to the one point that I have not made, and I want to. And it says...
Point of order. I think you've heard Mr. Christopherson say he's going to try to honor that.
I just have
Non,
to
mais
read something.
j'aimerais qu'il retire ce qu'il vient de dire.
I'd like him to withdraw what he just said. It's not language that we hear in Parliament. That he doesn't have respect for me.
Arsenault's position.
I said your position.
Je rétracte ce que
I wouldn't do that.
OK, je rétracte ce que je viens de dire.
Okay, I withdraw what I just said.
So that's okay. No, I understand your sensitivity, but I did try to be careful to say it was your position, not you personally. All I want to do is read into the record, Chair, from the Hansard of May 21st, 2013, and I have not had a chance to do this yet, and I was in the chair, 41st Parliament, and we had Mr. Ferguson here. And I want to read this. And the reason that I was doing the ramp up that my honorable colleague didn't care for much was because this is key. So, this is Mr. John Williamson taking the floor. I quote, "I don't have too many questions, just a couple. The budget reductions are optional for your office. You could opt in. That's my understanding, that for your office and for the offices of all the officers of Parliament, it was a request from the government that you undertook. Is that correct?" Ms. Lynn Sachs, "Yes, we received a letter from Minister Flaherty, I guess at the time encouraging us to do as the other departments have, but it was definitely our decision to proceed." Mr. Williamson followed up with, my follow-up question is this: do you feel the budget is adequate for you to discharge your duties as required? Mr. Ferguson, again, Mr. Chair, a certain amount of the work we do is required, financial audits, special exams. There are specific legislative requirements for us to do those. Certainly our budget is sufficient to do those things. Then we have a certain amount of our budget for performance audits. The performance audits are really where we have the discretion in terms of how many we do. There was a decision taken a few years ago, because part of the consideration of the audit office in performance audits is also the ability of this committee, and maybe other committees, but this committee in particular, to deal with the volume of work we produce. I think a few years ago there was a determination of the right number of audits we should be doing, and we have more or less adjusted to that. Right now, we feel we will be able to continue to do the number of performance audits we have planned. And that is why, Chair, it is accurate for the opposition to rise in the floor of the House of Commons and say, for the first time in the history of Canada, the Auditor General has advised Parliament they do not have sufficient funds to carry out their work plan. And that's why I wanted to read this in here. That's from Mr. Ferguson acknowledging he could have said no, and also acknowledging that in saying yes, there will be no reduction in the performance audits. And as somebody who was there, I can tell you that we did not miss a beat. And that's why I find it so appalling that the only answer we get from the minister responsible for not giving the Auditor General the money they need, the $10.8 million, is because of a decision that happened in 2011. That's their only answer, and it's not even true. So at the very least, I would hope the government members and the staff would take back to the minister that she has an obligation, first of all, to tell the truth. And secondly, give us a real reason why that money's not there, or pony it up. But do not keep pointing to some false dialogue about what happened with the Conservatives the last time. And everybody here knows that if there was even a little bit of guilt on the part of the Conservatives, I'd be making sure that during my comments, they'd be wearing it. On this one, they're innocent of the charge that they did in 2011 exactly what the Liberals are doing now. No, they didn't. And the Auditor General's statement that I can do the work is consistent with what we've had over the years that I've been here, until this time. And that's why it's so disheartening that it would happen under a government that ran on a platform of respecting Parliament and respecting parliamentary committees. So with that, Chair, that was what I wanted to put on the record. I appreciate that opportunity, assuming that we have the hearing on Thursday, and if not, it won't be that hard for me to get the floor back one way or another. So I'm prepared to withdraw my motion, allow the letter as we agreed today unanimously to go forward, and I'm going to remain optimistic that Thursday happens the way we hope, and that won't be a problem. Otherwise, we're into a whole other thing that we don't want to be in and we don't need to, and I don't think we will be. And other than that, I think for the purposes of this committee and this subject, I'm done.
Thank you, Mr. Christofferson. And we need unanimous consent from this committee to allow Mr. Christofferson to withdraw his motion, I'm told by the clerk. We have it. We have it.
You want to lobby your
So we are going to suspend, and then we will go in camera, and we will come back and look at the legacy report. We're suspended.